Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see faces. Please do put your cameras on if you can. We don't mind if you're eating your lunch. It's just nicer for us to see you because then we don't feel like we're on television. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Hello.
Hello.
In she pops. Lovely, some names I recognise as well. Fantastic. So I just mentioned, you'll probably hear me say it over again, but if you can put your cameras on, that would be brilliant. I appreciate it if you can't for whatever reason, but it's a nicer flow we feel in our workshops if we can all see each other, rather than it feeling like a presentation. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for everybody to join. Make sure you've got a cup of tea or a glass of water or something. Wine, maybe a bit early. Never too early.
Never too early.
I might get myself a glass of wine.
Yes, we have to join you.
That's going to get the interaction, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly would. We'd all relax beautifully then.
I'm just going to put everyone on mute.
Okay.
Just for the background noise.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shania. So just before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. So as Shania said, she's going to put everyone on mute. If you want to ask a question, you very much can. You can either wave at us, which often works well. Shania will be looking to see who's waving. But if you want to be more technical, you can do it by clicking on the reactions, and you'll see it's got a raise hand on there. So you can raise your hand down there if you've got any questions. And we, of course, encourage lots of questions because it's a very relaxed lunch and learn today. This isn't really a presentation as such, but more of a conversation, really. So I think what I'll do is I'll begin if everybody's ready. Do you think, Shania, everyone's who's coming?
Yeah, there's no one else in the waiting room. So
brilliant. Okay,
begin.
So do you remember what it felt like to play? Can you remember being a child, being outside and mucking about for hours and hours, doing who knows what, and time would just bend and we would completely forget about everything else other than the play that we were doing. And a friend of mine reminded me that that sometimes you could be out until it's pitch black, dark, still playing, and you only realize that it's dark when you come in because you are so absorbed in what you were doing. And that really is flow. That is what happens when we get into flow. And today I want to open up the possibility of the potential of ourselves, but also the potential of people living with dementia. And today's talk came about because I was asked a question by one of you, and I don't even know if you're here, but somebody who came along to one of our workshops who said, you know, we hear about reminiscence and cognitive stimulation therapy and all of these things that are great, but I don't hear about the potential of what people with dementia can do. We do use a lot of reminiscence and a lot of looking at the past and who they were, which is all very important. But what about the potential? That's what we're going to delve into today. My name's Laura Walker. I'm co-founder of Memory Matters, an organisation whose whole being is about finding opportunities for people living with dementia to thrive. And thrive and dementia are two words that aren't often put together. And that really is what we believe in, is that people can live well. So I'm co-founder. I'm an ex-nurse. What else am I? Many things. A mother, all of those other things as well. And today I'm also going to be introducing you to Sophie, who's going to be part of this workshop too. So Sophie, if you can give everyone a little wave. Sophie's there. And Sophie is our team lead in Cornwall. She is a very skilled dementia practitioner. She has been running cognitive stimulation therapy sessions for many years now for Memory Matters. Probably about 9 years, is it, Sophie? Yeah. And before that had worked in dementia as well. And she's quite an accomplished artist as well. She doesn't like me doing any of this. She's an artist and she's very creative. And so Sophie's going to be helping me with this workshop today. And we've also want to introduce you to Shania, who's here as well. And Shania does all of the holding everything together. So without Shania, Sophie and I would be sort of floating in the internet ether, wondering where you all were. Shania holds everything together. So she's the one, if you've got any tech difficulties, please say so in the chat and Shania will help. Shania will also be checking out whether you are writing anything in the chat, and we'll be making sure that me or Sophie see that as we're talking to you. I think that's it in terms of us. We do have Dan's here somewhere, and Clorinda. You might be able to give us a wave, Dan. I think your camera's off, but you'll see Dan's here as well. He's part of the team. There they are. Woo! There's Dan and Clorinda, who are also very valued members of the Memory Matters team. So when we come to questions, it might be that they jump in and have an answer too. So today at this Lunch and Learn, and thank you for spending your lunchtime with us. I really appreciate it. We're going to cover what people living with dementia have that we don't. We're going to cover exploring the power of the moment and how to develop an individual's potential using an easy to use formula. So some of the workshop might feel a bit presenty and some of it will be much more discussion-y. If there's time, we're going to break you out into breakout rooms to workshops and things. We don't yet know what the time looks like because we're just kind of exploring this.
Sorry.
So, as I mentioned before, this came from a question from one of you around potential. How do I develop the potential of someone living with dementia? And I started, because I think it's always the best place to start when you're writing something, is what does potential actually mean? So dictionary definition, of course, is having or showing the capacity to develop into something in the future. Now, the first time that I read that, I thought, oh, you know, maybe that's not relevant here for people with dementia. The capacity to develop into something in the future. That was my first thought. Maybe that's not relevant because we know that dementia is progressive. So how can we say that we can develop someone into doing something in the future? But then the more I thought about it, and certainly this morning talking to Sophie about what she's going to talk about, I saw that, yes, we can do that. And I want you to hold that in your hearts as you listen to what Sophie has to say about like the real session stuff, the stuff that we see every day, or Sophie sees every day, working with people with dementia. So hold on to that thought about potential. But before we sort of look at what Sophie's got to show us, I want to talk about the thing that people with dementia have that we don't. And I want you to, in the chat, I want you to think about what you think people with dementia have that we don't. Do you have any ideas? I'll just give you a minute to get typing. Letting go, says Anna. Yeah. Living in the moment, yeah. To say what they think, yeah. Anna, would you mind coming on to mic for a moment?
Yes, here I am.
Tell me what you mean about letting go. Let's explore it a little bit.
Well, I guess emotionally, if you're a bit more, I mean, it's probably not fully accurate because I'm sure there are emotions that come back in cycles and loops and at times, and anxieties around certain things that are persistent. I mean, people don't stop being who they are, but I think there might be a little bit more of small things that seem important to us that might not be when you have dementia, that you can let go and just move on to the next thing.
I think you've really nailed it, Anna. And I've seen that myself in noticing the changes when we work with people living with dementia for a long time, and we might sort of start to work with them at the very, very early stages of dementia, where there are certain things that they maybe are very important to them. They might be quite finicky about how things are done in a certain way, and then as time goes on, it just there's much more of a relaxed state that can come. And you're right, it's not for everybody. I mean, we know, don't we, if we talk about one person with dementia, we're talking about one person with dementia, so it's always very difficult to say on the whole this is what happens. But I think that that's a really good insight. So a few of you said living in the moment. Julie said to say what they think. Yeah, so very often people with dementia, because of often damage in the brain, that they are unable to have a filter, and so will say what they think, and how freeing actually that might be to be able to just say what you think. A freedom from sense of duty or responsibility. Yeah, I get that. Take things at face value, says Dan. What you see is what you get. Yeah, and there's something relaxing in that, isn't it? Just being able to be. Heather, would you be able to come off mic for a second? I can't see. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Sorry.
There you are. I actually mean on mic when I say off mic, don't I? So you said what you see is what you get. So could you give us a little example of that?
I find when people come to us at Memory Cafe, there's no hold barred there. Literally, here I am, right, what we're going to do, and just do it for me, sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's a willingness, isn't there, to sort of dive in sometimes, that perhaps, certainly, and I know that I've experienced it myself, and I think, when Sophie talks in a minute, you'll be aware that there's that feeling of, a lot of people think that creativity, particularly, or doing something to do with art, we've probably found it more within the staff team or volunteer team that are like, oh no, I can't draw, or I can't do this, whereas people with dementia can be a lot more likely to actually just give it a go. So yeah, so that's a good one. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so yeah, we've got lots. And then we've got Anna, who says, my grand saw the sky as purple. Fantastic. So almost like different perceptions completely of how the world is. Brilliant. So that's a really good insight. And I think, you're absolutely right. All of your ideas are right. And two of you said about being in the now. That is one of the things that people with dementia can do so well. And that's where we can meet them, in the right now, because very often they don't have a memory that they can use to kind of time slip backwards, or really worry or have anxieties about the future either. And if you think, it's millions and millions of pounds worth is spent every year on us searching for that, or going on retreats and finding meditation and doing all these things to find a way to just be in the now, to stop that chatter, that constant chatter that we have in our heads. And that's what people with dementia just do. And, there is a gift in that. And I have, obviously, not obviously, but I have read a few books around this and around people with dementia who've talked about that sense of inner peace, that not having to worry anymore, because actually the capacity isn't there to do the worrying. So letting go happens, which is exactly what you said, Anna. So that's what people with dementia have that we don't, which is a gift. And I'd like for us to think of it as a gift. And I want to just explore, or look at, how do we explore the moment, like ourselves? How do we do that? So I talked at the beginning about when you're a child and you're playing and you just lost time. And there will be other things that you do where you just lose time. So you'll all have something that you do that suddenly 2 hours has gone by. How did that happen? And yet you didn't see the time pass because you were having so much fun, or at least so focused on what you were doing that time bent or became elastic. So that we call flow state, and it's a great place to be. And I always encourage people to get into flow state as much as they possibly can, because it's so good for us. And in our work, if we can get people with dementia in flow state, then we're doing a great job. You know, I talk a lot, and you may have come to workshops before where we're talking about ensuring that people are talking, and we're experiencing them finding words and working on language skills from the cognitive stimulation therapy. But equally as important is for them to be able to get into flow, and that's really what we want to focus on today. So the formula that I've come up with, or we've come up with, is this idea that first it's about research. So number one is research. If you're writing this down, number one is research, and that's where we talk to family and to friends and people who are close to the person to find out what it is that really makes their hearts sing. And this is where it is important to kind of do a bit of reminiscence and to find out where somebody loved to spend time, or what it is that they love to explore. And that may have changed hugely since their dementia. So it is worth going back in time just to see what it was for them. The second one is to understand, so with a person-centered perspective, understanding how dementia is affecting them in the now. So as you'll know, people with dementia will have many different symptoms, and each person with dementia will be different. So it might be that the person that you're working with has difficulties with language. They may have aphasia. They may not be able to say what they want to say. Equally, they may not be able to understand what's being said to them. Or it might be that they're fine with language skills, but their dexterity isn't great. So something that they would have been great at and really enjoyed before, they might not be able to do now. So really understanding for them, how is dementia affecting their ability to do the things that they love and enjoy? The third one is finding the essence. So finding the essence of the things that used to make their heart sing. So I give a very basic example, might be my grandmother loved to knit. I've never seen anybody's hands go so quickly. She would knit, and she'd have a jumper done in a day. She loved it. And then as she got older, she was unable to do it. Her hands got more arthritic. And that's the other thing, you know, when we go back to the understanding, it's not always dementia, is it? The symptoms aren't always dementia symptoms, but just symptoms of perhaps getting older, the fact that people can't do those small sort of skills anymore. So with knitting, for her, we have to understand, what is it then that gets her into flow? Is it the actual knitting, or is it the repetition, the clicking of the needles, the doing something over and over and over again that actually gets somebody into flow? So things like knitting, things like gardening. For gardening, it might be just getting your hands in the earth and really being a part of nature. So finding the essence. So once you've done your research, that's your third thing, after understanding how dementia affects them, being able to do that, finding the essence of that thing. So for knitting, it might be winding wool, which is repetitive, still using the wool, still part of the same thing. The essence is there. And then finally, the third thing is constructing a new arena. Constructing a new arena. And this is one that is different, but it has that essence within it. So that example of the wool is the new arena. So we've got knitting proper as we know it. The new arena is using wool in a different way, but holding on to the essence of that repetition that was important. So that's the formula. And now we're just going to, in a very relaxed manner, go over to Sophie, but we're going to have a bit of a conversation, Sophie and I. Sophie's prepared some slides with some photographs, and we just wanted to show you some real real examples of what Sophie's been doing and what she's been seeing in the people that she's been working with. So, Sophie.
Hello. I'll try and share my screen with you and show you all these lovely photos. Oh, can you see that?
Yes.
Brilliant. So yeah, this first slide, it just kind of shows a typical session really of the sort of things we do quite often here at Memory Matters. And then this session, it was around Van Gogh. So it was about recreating his sunflower paintings. I know he did loads of them, didn't he? So as a group, yeah, you get everyone to individually try and create a flower and then perhaps cut it out, and then I sort of provide the pot and the background, and as a group you work together. So it's, you like to think it's nothing too daunting. Yeah, so here it yeah, sort of shows the groups really engaged in what they're doing. And I kind of thought, if you were sent a plan of this session, in essence, it could seem quite prescriptive. But as I was looking through the pictures last night, it made me kind of realise how it, you know, it can go in any direction, really. Shall I move on to the next one? Oh, and that was just a photo to kind of show how it should look when it's completed.
I love it. It's so wonderful, so colourful.
Sorry, skip past it quick. So for this lady, she sat around the table, you know, there were the paints and the paper and the brushes and everything on offer. And she immediately did that thing that you quite often hear in groups, I'm sure you all have done, about, oh, I was never any good at art. My art teacher told me I couldn't draw. I can't paint. Da, 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 da. And then slowly just allowing people some time. She really engaged, and that picture there to her left, she just sort of worked quickly, really enjoyed the colours, like filled the whole page. You know, it wasn't necessarily of sunflowers, but she really enjoyed, you know, the process. So she filled those pages, and then the morning progressed, became to the point that we'd, you know, we're cutting out what people had done and trying to bring it together as a group. And she really, really took charge, and she was there for ages and ages, and really enjoyed arranging it and rearranging it and working out, you know, how it could really look its best, which was lovely. I'm just moving you all over there. And it was just really nice to sort of allow her that time. Yeah, and I couldn't have predicted that, you know, that was what was going to happen for her. And then another lady, this was the same morning in the same session. So we used paper plates, you know, as palettes to mix the paint. And so she did her neat little sunflower painting, you can see there on the photo. And then she really enjoyed just mixing all the paints together. And again, she was there for ages and went into this complete trance-like state. And I just left her, you know, to her own devices. She just quietly sat and mixed and mixed and mixed. Yeah, and so to me, that was a real example of flow. You know, she just, yeah. I don't know, I scribbled something down that you said, Laura, and it really summed it up. Oh, about that, yeah. Repetition, isn't it? It's about repetition. She just kept mixing the paint. Yeah.
Yeah, I think repetition can be really underestimated, can't it? You know, we can sometimes feel like we need to be producing something or doing something specific.
Yeah, definitely. And for her, you know, she finished it and she laughed about it. And I said, oh, what have you made there? And I actually kept it for a week. I put it in the cupboard and then showed her the following week. I said, oh, this is what you did last week. And she laughed because, you know, it didn't really serve any purpose, but does that matter? She just enjoyed, you know, really enjoyed being in the moment and, yeah, mixing the paint.
That's a really great example of being in flow and not worrying about the end result at all. It's just about what a success that you've got someone into flow.
And then the next example of this, so it was the same session but in a different venue, and again around the table you've got the materials out, and this guy, I think he started off thinking about the sunflowers and then again just was so absorbed and created this picture that he kind of knew what it was, And yeah, he just really loved it. Kind of went really quiet and just in his own world, and chatted about how he loved the pastels. And yeah, so it went in a completely different direction, but he spent ages and ages, you know, just using the materials and just really enjoying being in the moment again.
And people don't often have, do they, the opportunity to try out different things like pastels, perhaps something he wouldn't have had at home necessarily, or had the time or the space to just focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a really good one. So I'm not sure what's next. I think we're done with Van Gogh. And then this is another session that I've done quite a few times. So it's around the artist Andy Goldsworthy, and he tends to use sort of materials from nature, so lovely leaves and stones and things like that. It's a really nice session to do in the autumn time, obviously, when you've got all those lovely coloured leaves. Yeah, let's see what comes up with this one. So there's a few photos of people, again, just really being in the moment. It really is one of those, you kind of turn up to the session with a bag full of stinky leaves and probably a few slugs and woodlice crawling across the table, and people think she's gone mad. But with the examples from an artist's work, you know, from Andy Goldsworthy's work, and yeah, and people, you know, they start to work together. I think that photo on the left sums it up really well. You know, they're standing up, they're engaged, working as a team, just, you know, deciding what they want to do. And again, it really brings in all the senses, which completely fits into what we do, doesn't it, with CST, with the lady there smelling the rosemary. Yeah, they're really engaged. And again, you don't know where it's going to take you or take people. You know, some people create all sorts of wonderful things.
And Sophie, how important do you think is the part at the beginning where you sort of show the artist?
I quite like to do that with art sessions, just because I feel it kind of gives it more weight. Often in creative sessions, people that come to the groups might think it's childlike or demeaning. And so if you can say, oh, but, you know, Monet did this, or I've got a Matisse session that I've done a few times with, you know, coloured paper and scissors, because he created cutouts. It just sort of, to me, it sort of gives it, yeah, some weight. Whether that works or not, I don't know. So yeah, these are lovely, colourful pictures of everyone being busy. And again, it's lovely. Like you say, you start the session, you know, they think, what's this load of compost on the table? And then when people just have the time to sit and pick things up and touch them and really enjoy the different colours and the textures and everything, it can take a while for people to get in the zone, but to allow them that time, most people, yeah, do engage really, really well. Yeah, and then another colourful one. And then that was, yeah, at the end of a session, the same session, and with, yeah, no prompting from me at all, they decided as a group that they were going to create this lovely tree.
I love it.
And then there was a chap from that group that went home, and yeah, between sessions, so from one week to the next, he'd done this at home and came back. So it, you know, it sparked something in him to go home and kind of continue with what we've been doing, which is really lovely to see.
Yeah, and that links brilliantly, doesn't it, to this, the potential being the capacity to develop into something in the future. And that's it, you nailed it there. So he's gone home with what he's done in the session and created this.
Yeah, it's lovely. And then this one, it was at a time on the project that I work on, it was around goal setting, wasn't it, Laura? So it was encouraging people to go home and try and take part in activities, wasn't it, that would kind of promote?
Right. So I think we talked about reducing stress, and there are many ways to reduce stress. And one of the things that we talked about is doing something that gets you in flow state. So we suggested things like doing something creative. Yeah, so that's what the session was about beforehand, and that's what they went off home. That was a challenge, wasn't it, to go home
Yeah.
and do?
So this is work that they would have done at home and then brought it back to the session, and then and then the two of them are, you know, talking about what they've created, which is really lovely.
Fabulous, isn't it? That windmill's amazing.
I know that one, yeah. But and then there's always that sense of, oh well, you know, oh, I used to be so much better, I used to do this, I used to do that, and this is all I can do. But I just think it's brilliant that it can, you know, rekindle something. It's great. And then this chap has got aphasia. He really struggles with word finding, and particularly within the group. You know, sometimes for a whole session he hardly, you know, says very many words at all. But then often with creative activities he would really sort of really come to life. And I think this one showed it, that he's, you know, he could have stayed sitting in the chair, but he was kind of up out of the chair and really going for it. That was like a group Monet activity. And there's a few examples of him. And this was him drawing on a little whiteboard. We actually had students that had joined us from Singapore, but they were in Singapore up on a screen, and it was just a little challenge that we were doing, which he really enjoyed. I think he was drawing a household object or something. But yeah. And then this is another creative activity that we did. I don't know if you can see it there very clearly around, it was to do with the artist Giacometti, is it the sculptor? And we did little like foil sculptures. Yeah, and he was brilliant. You can see him there actually in the middle, and he was there for ages fiddling with this really fine sculptures.
These tinfoil sculptures were amazing. I came into the bungalow and saw them on the table, and they were just amazing. Just the picture doesn't do them justice.
No, they really were good, weren't they? Yeah. And again, you know, we had a starting point, and it took people in all sorts of different directions, which is, it's brilliant. And that's him again. This is a slightly disturbing picture because my top seems to match the table. Oh, but yeah, I thought he looked quite engaged. And then this was a lovely chap that in this photo he's handling an old camera that had come from the museum. I think we had a box from the museum of resources, and he was really interested in this old camera and said that he used to do photography. And then the following week he came along with his own camera and took photos of the group, and he got
brilliant,
got them all standing together as a group and used his own camera, which again, it kind of, you know, it sparked an interest, which is nice.
Yeah. And it's that, yeah, so for me that again says potential. There's the potential that's not being used. His skills as a photographer are not being used, and then you've sparked something within him, and then the next week here he is, you know, very much owning his skills.
Yeah, definitely. And then this is another chap that came along to a little project that I was running in the museum in Truro. Quite quiet in the groups, didn't always talk that much, but really engaged in any creative activities. And he had a huge interest in art. And there was an exhibition on upstairs in the museum, so it was like quite a big exhibition space. And we sat there as a group and had time to like really look at the paintings and talk about them as a group. And he sat there and said to me, oh, I've painted and drawn quite a lot in the past. And he told me that he'd painted self-portraits, and went into quite a lot of detail about the sort of process that he'd gone through. I said, oh, that's a really hard thing to do. I've only ever done it about once, and really badly. It's really hard to paint yourself. And he told me all about it. And then the following week he came back, and his wife said when he left the session, he went straight to the art shop next door to the museum and went and bought a canvas and went home and painted his self-portrait. Yeah, so his wife wanted me to know. She said it, you know, really sparked sparked something in him. I was really keen to see what he painted, but I haven't seen it. So, but yeah. So yeah, it's something that he really, really engages in. Yeah, I think that's all the pictures.
Thank you, Sophie. What great examples of what we were talking about. What amazing examples of potential, of the potential of people living with dementia. You know, and I think, you know, you're all here because you believe that, don't you? You believe that we can help people living with dementia to thrive. But it's just really lovely to see some real life examples in Sophie's work there, and the wider team at Memory Matters, and what they're doing, and that it's not just what happens in the session, it's what might happen because of the session, like that magic that happens outside of the session as well. I think that really highlights it brilliantly. Great, so let's have a look at what's the time tonight? How are we doing for time?
Yeah, you've got 25 minutes.
Okay, fantastic. So we have got enough time to put you into, what should we do, Shania? You were going to decide.
I'll put them into pairs.
Okay,
Exactly
into pairs. So you're going to go into pairs in a minute. You're going to get a little message on the screen, which will put you into a breakout room. And we want you to do two things with your partner. One, I want you to talk about what it is that gets you into flow. Where is it where you lose time, where time becomes elastic? So it could be for you, it could be gardening, it could be knitting, whatever it is. It might be running. What is it for you? And I want you to share with your partner. And then the second thing that I want you to do between the two of you is, because this will be helpful for you going forward, is to think of how you could begin a session like one of Sophie's in a way that could be taken in any way, where it would spark potential. So have a think about what Sophie said about picking an artist and showing their work, and thinking about how you as a group could emulate it. It might not be, you might not choose to start with an artist, but that's something that you might want to try. Yeah, so those are the two things. Does that make sense? Is everyone happy? Thumbs up if you're happy. Good. All right, so you'll get a little message to get you into your rooms, and then we'll give you, what should we give you, about 8 minutes?
Yeah.
And then we'll call you back and we'll feedback.
Oh, I'd forgotten how chilly it is in this bungalow.
Concrete floor, see?
Oh, my feet are freezing.
They're obviously deep in conversation, because if they're not, they would have pressed the button straight away, wouldn't they? You always know that they're like, oh, we've only got a minute left.
I'll get kicked out.
You can always tell the pairs that aren't getting on are the ones who jump straight back in.
Got nothing to say.
There you all are. How was that?
Good.
Oh, I've got.
You know, I can paint for a couple of hours and it's gone. I'm gone.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
All right.
Anyone else who would like to share? Yep, Sharon. Let's hear.
Okay, I just wanted to add, I was in Julie's group. We had one other lady, Jewel, in case Jewel hasn't raised her hand yet. What was so ingenious about Julie's other suggestion was it was in response to Jewel works with a lady who used to paint but her eyesight has diminished so badly that she gave up painting. And Julie said, well, why don't you switch the art? That's where the clay came in. In other words, if she can no longer create through the vision, you know, and seeing and with painting, perhaps she could transfer the arts through, you know, touch, through working with clay, which I thought that was just ingenious. I never would have thought outside the box like that. Just wanted to say that.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's and that's, you know, when we talked about the formula, didn't we, this idea of finding the essence, and I guess that's part of it, isn't it? It's being able to do that thing but in a different way.
Right.
Brilliant. And Sharon, what gets you into flow?
Well, I guess, you know, I wasn't thinking in an art sense, and I was just saying to them that when I find an article or a podcast on a subject that I find interesting, I reread or re-listen and make notes on whatever the topic is. And for a little while, I'll get lost. I'll get in the flow of just trying to understand what's going on with that.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Anyone else that we haven't spoken to, or any other ideas that you want to share? Nope, you don't have to. No. Well, I hope that you had a really good time in your pairs, and you were able to explore and discover, and perhaps give you some starting points for some sessions that will help people with dementia to be in their potential. So that really is it. I think we've coming to a close. Unless you have any questions, and I'll open the floor. Have anybody got any questions that they want to ask either me or Sophie or Shania or Dan or Clorinda, who's around the corner? There she is. Just raise your hands. So no, it doesn't look like there is. Dan, would you mind just showing that that piece, that art piece made from tinfoil, so that they can kind of see close up?
So this is well, the way I interpret it, but obviously the beauty of art is it can be many things. So the way I interpret it is obviously a woman dancing with her daughter. But obviously it is whatever your imagination sees, I guess. But yeah, it's really beautiful piece of art.
Thank you, Dan.
No, it was lovely. It was a chap that comes to the Bodman group did it, and if you could, it doesn't do it justice, and he made it, and it's like a mother and child, and the proportions and everything are right, and the child was like off the ground, so there was a lot of movement in it, you know, and it was just made from some tin foil. I thought it was lovely, but yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. And Sophie, you were saying that you wanted to cast it, didn't you? It was that.
Yeah, it was really precious, and now it's been moved around a bit, so it doesn't look quite so beautiful. But yeah, it's good.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed this lunch and learn, and I think lunch and learns are the way to go. So thank you for joining us. Sharon, whereabouts are you? Are you in the UK?
Oh no, I'm in Washington, D.C.
So it's not a lunch and learn for you then?
It's a morning breakfast and learn.
That works too, though, doesn't it? Absolutely. Well, we're delighted that you've joined us all that way.
Thank you.
Over the Wi-Fi. It's lovely to see you. It's lovely to see all of you, and hopefully you'll come again to the next one. Keep an eye on our website, won't you, for what we've got going on. And Shania, did you just want to tell people what we've got happening in the future?
Yes, so we do have, if any of you are cognitive stimulation therapy facilitators, we do have a Facebook group. I'll just pop lots of links in the chat now. Give me a second.
Sorry, I've asked you to talk and do at the same time.
No, that's all right. So we've got that one, and then we also do provide cognitive stimulation therapy training, and we're now delivering it live. We'd love for you to join on. We have lots of dates in the diary, so I'll just put the link in the chat for you to have a little look at and see. And Laura delivers that live, and that's for a full day, but it's at a reduced price at the minute of £95, and it's normally 160. So I would sign up if you was interested. And we also do a 6-month training program called the Fellowship, and I believe one of our fellows is here now, Alexandra. It's a 6-month training program on how to deliver CST in your community, whether you want to do that for your organisation that you work with now, or you want to do that alone for your own business. Then we'll be able to give you all the resources that we have to do that. So I will put the link in the chat for the fellowship.
Thanks, Shania. And then the final thing is just the workshops. We're doing free workshops sort of every sort of 6 weeks. So keep an eye on our website for that. Shania, if you could just pop a website link in.
Yes.
Alex just said she's here in heart at least. Poor Alexandra is not very well at the moment. She's got COVID, which is why her camera's off. But yes, she is going through our fellowship at the moment. And there was one last thing, of course, is our membership site that we are launching very, very soon, which is where you can get everything you could possibly need, including session plans and master classes, all sorts of things. So ask us about that as well. So anything you want to ask about, just get hold of either me or Shania or Sophie or Dan. And you can do that within the CST Facebook group if you're joined up. Just put at Shania or at Laura or at Dan, at Sophie, and you can ask us any questions there. And Shania's popped her email address in the chat as well.
Oh, can I ask something? Can Shania copy the text of the chat and just email the text of the chat to all the attendees?
That sounds like an
Yes.
amazing plan, Sharon. Thank
course.
you very much. Let's do that. Yeah.
So I
Okay.
will send out the recording of this workshop later on as well, and then I'll copy the chat and send it with that.
Oh,
one too.
great. Thank
And
you.
I'll copy all the links that I've sent in the chat as well, so you have them all as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Do we-
bye.
Bye.
Do we need to send you our name and emails?
No, I already have that, Julie. I have all
Okay.
that. So I'll
All
send
right.
it across to you. Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Bye.
Oh, I'm pleased.
Bye.
Bye-bye.